Nearly 3 years of Joe Biden's proxy war to cover up his Ukraine dealings has depleted the United States 155 millimeter artillery round storage, stockpile, Patriot missiles, and now ATACMS. The Biden regime has disarmed America and left us on the brink of a global conflagration. We shipped M1 Abrams, German Leopards, French artillery, Patriot missile batteries, Bradley fighting vehicles, and so much more for the Ukrainians to abandon on the battlefield. The Russians have been able to use battlefield exploitation of that abandoned equipment to discover our vulnerabilities and capabilities. The Americans and/or the Germans likely blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, causing massive ecological carnage and carbon dioxide release, and denying Central European homes of heating in winter after idiot German politicians abandoned nuclear power. After centuries of neutrality dating back to the early 1700s, Sweden is now a combatant, having joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Finland broke its nearly century of neutrality and joined NATO as well, escalating tensions with Russia, with whom Finland now shares NATO's longest contiguous border. At every turn, Biden first ignored the threat from Russia. 6 weeks after he became president, Russia moved 70,000 troops to the border of Belarus and Russia with Ukraine. And then he fueled a proxy war via NATO's puppet in Kiev. Biden has poured our national treasure into this dark abyss, sending hundreds of billions whenever his lackey Volodymyr Zelensky demands more, which is ironic, given Joe hardly knows where he is most days. After all, that corn pop is a dangerous character. Yet nearly 2 months after a devastating hurricane wiped out lives in the foothills of Appalachia, tonight, with Americans sleeping in tents while criminal alien invaders are living it up in hotels in Manhattan, survivors of Biden's neglect and FEMA's incompetence are huddling in tents as the temperatures drop towards freezing in the mountains of North Carolina. Now, in the waning days of an interminably embarrassing and epic failure of a presidency, Creepy Joe is doing his darndest to draw the United States into armed conflict with Russia. Why, I ask? How, you may be asking? Well, Biden has approved the use of ATACMS on Russian soil. If you don't know what these are, they're Army missiles that travel 300 kilometers, raising the stakes to a shockingly high level in this conflict. In response, Putin has predictably threatened the use of nuclear weapons. Today, Putin lowered the employment threshold for using nuclear weapons. I say again, he lowered the threshold for using nuclear weapons in response to Biden's unprovoked escalation. And now tonight, the Washington Post reports that Biden is up the ante, approving the use of anti-personnel mines by Ukraine. What? The U.S. did not join the Ottawa Treaty banning the use of landmines for one good reason. The inner Korean border is heavily mined. These mines are a major deterrent, and sometimes it's all that prevents North Korea from resuming the war they started in 1950, a war that never officially ended. Employing landmines is a gross human rights violation and a shameful episode that could only come from a crooked coward who never put on the uniform and trades in his attorney's son's comfy deployment in the green zone. I ask, where is Amnesty International? Where is the United Nations? Where is the EU? They all scream to allow criminal aliens to invade and occupy Western Europe and North America, but they remain silent on this insanity unfolding in the Biden regime and in Ukraine. In addition to Putin potentially preparing to use tactical nuclear weapons, the main communications cables connecting Finland with Western Europe via Rostock, the Sea Lion 1 cable, has been cut in the Baltic, as has the cable to Sweden. The question tonight is, by whom? Is this a prelude to an escalation in the conflict? Would Russia strike Finland? It seems unlikely, to say the least. But given the strategic advantage of Scandinavia and the potential Russian use of nukes, as well as Sweden and Finland losing access to key communications links, it seems less outrageous than it did just days ago. Biden's inept foreign policy has long been about symbolism over substance. Take the moronic announcement that the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan on September 11th, 2021, and the epic failure that led to. Or his attacks on the energy sector, which drove up energy costs and helped push the world into shock inflation, impoverishing hundreds of millions of people around the globe. Isolating Scandinavia, threatening to use nuclear weapons, massive Russian offensives already underway in Ukraine. Are we on the brink of global conflagration, finally? While things appear to be grim, I'm not yet convinced, despite Biden's best efforts to get us all glowing in the dark, that we've arrived at that point. But make no mistake, folks, the approval for ATACMS into Russia and the use of anti-personnel mines are both idiotic escalations that will not deliver any sort of victory for Ukraine and have unnecessarily confirmed what I have been saying since February 2022, and I'm on record saying it. The United States and NATO are belligerents in this conflict. As belligerents, Biden and Jens Stoltenberg have made us legitimate targets under the norms of warfare. That should have made the rah-rah Ukraine sycophants in the U.S. and all over Western Europe with their blue and gold flags, yellow flags flying everywhere, weary 33 months ago. And it should terrify them tonight. We appear tonight to be closer to armed conflict and possibly nuclear Armageddon than at any point since the impetuous JFK's brinkmanship nearly led us into a nuclear war with the Soviet Union over Cuba in October 1962. Now, this video is not meant to be a prediction video. It's not meant to be an alarmist video. It's just meant to lay out all that's taking place right now. Very worrying signs of Scandinavia being isolated by communications, and Russia lowering the threshold for the use of tactical nuclear weapons. If you're not frightened, perhaps you need to pay attention, and not to the fake stream, lame stream media, or the so-called experts who've never done anything in their life. They're all over social media, but actually to people that know what they're talking about. Folks, we are in for a bumpy ride here. In the last waning days of inept, corrupt Biden regime, we can all hope and pray that he doesn't lead us into war with Russia before he leaves office. And those are my thoughts. God bless. Cheers.